I think I know exactly what Kevin Feige's next career move is going to be after Avengers Secret Wars. Let me explain. Kevin Feige will no doubt go down in history as one of the greatest film producers of all time. That destiny is sealed from the Infinity Saga alone. It doesn't matter, really, if his reputation may have been slightly tarnished by the multiverse saga. The Infinity Saga, those first three phases of the MCU, on their own place Kevin Feige on that Mount Rushmore of film producers. And, I think he's really going to bring us home with Doomsday and Secret Wars, thus saving the multiverse saga, really, and, further cementing the fact that, yes, he is one of, if not the greatest film producers, greatest film franchise producers of all time. And I'm really excited to see what he has teased is coming next for the MCU beyond Secret Wars, that being mutants and the X-Men, and what I think will be the Mutant Saga, following that in-universe semi-reboot of the MCU after Secret Wars, where the universe is like somewhat reset. There was a recent quote from Feige where I think he said like 80%, 85% of the old MCU and what happened will remain, but some stuff that he didn't like and whatnot will be changed. And actually, I don't think that quote was from Feige himself, but an insider rather saying that that's how they're doing it. But I can't confirm or deny that. I think we've got a video up on Screen Crush, should be live when you're by the time you're watching this, discussing just that. So go check that out. Now, as I've said many times, Avengers Secret Wars, when they do that in-universe reboot, it really will be the perfect time, the perfect point for them to do any recasting of characters for actors that maybe aren't wanting to make a commitment to staying on for another 10 to 15 years. And this would also be the perfect and most opportune time for Kevin Feige to do the same thing if he wants to, if he wants to step aside and move on to something else beyond Marvel. We know he's a huge Star Wars fan. He's a bigger Star Wars fan than he is a Marvel fan. And he would, of course, make a great studio head for Lucasfilm. And well, yes, that would be a very lateral move on his part. I do think it's one that he would love to do because he is so passionate about Star Wars. So that is an option. But I also think that Feige is excited for the prospects of starting fresh with his baby, with the MCU, and finally getting to do the X-Men 110% the way that he wants to do them. Remember, Feige was around for those early Fox X-Men films before the MCU. And there was a lot of stuff that he wanted to get done that he just couldn't make happen because the characters were so, spread out among different studios. And then with the MCU, while he did awesome with the Infinity Saga, even then they didn't have the rights to key characters like the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man. And I think in a lot of ways that made them better because they were forced to work with what they had and made it truly great instead of, just relying on their heavy hitters. So in hindsight, I do think that was great. But now we are at a point where Feige has pretty much all of his toys, all of his Marvel toys at his disposal. And I would imagine that he would like to stick around for that play session, the Mutant Saga. So I don't know that Feige steps away the second he gets the opportunity to tell these X-Men stories and Fantastic Four stories and do an entire Mutant Saga. And that's why I don't think he's leaving Marvel Studios, at least not entirely. But I also don't think he's going to turn down the opportunity to dip his toe into that Star Wars universe. Remember, there were reports that he had a Star Wars movie in the works that he was going to produce, but we haven't really heard much about it since. So here's what I think is likely to happen. I think that Kevin Feige doesn't accept the lateral career move of moving from Marvel Studios to Lucasfilm. I think he accepts a promotion to president of Walt Disney Studios, Disney's entire film and television arm of the company. That would keep Kevin Feige over Marvel Studios, but it would also put him over Lucasfilm, Pixar, everything that Disney makes, Feige would oversee, and he would report directly to the Disney CEO, who at the moment is Bob Iger, but Bob Iger is on the way out, or so he says. So, whoever the next Disney CEO ends up being, And no, it it won't be Kevin Feige. The CEO of Disney is not a job that Kevin Feige wants. He has zero interest in managing, theme parks and the cruises and resorts and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's what's next for Feige, and I think that's what makes the most sense for him moving forward. He's a smart guy who can put together good teams of smart people. Granted, I am a little weary of what seems to happen when Kevin Feige gets stretched too thin. That's pretty much what we saw happen with the Multiverse Saga, but maybe that's been a good learning experience for not only him, but the people he has around him at Marvel. Plus, we have to remember that Feige was forced to do things that he didn't want to do by Bob Paycheck, and I don't think that that would be the case anymore, hopefully, if Feige were to become over Disney Studios. And if Disney has a competent CEO that just says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna let you do what you do because you do it well, and as long as the I don't know, the trajectory of money coming in stays, at a nice steep crawling pace and it's nice and green, I'm gonna leave you alone and let you cook." That's what a good CEO does. And here's another thing while we're on the topic of Feige. We have to remember Kevin Feige, he is not a filmmaker in the same way that James Gunn is a filmmaker. They're very different. And that's not to say one is better than the other. I'm just saying that their roles as heads of their respective studios, while essentially the exact same job, the same title, their approach to their job is very different. James Gunn, he is a writer and a director and a, in the field filmmaker. He's writing and directing entire movies in his DC universe, as well as mapping out the entirety of the universe where other writers and filmmakers will then come in and contribute. And that has worried some fans that James Gunn may end up stretching himself way too thin and not be able to run the studio as efficiently as he would like to if he is taking on the full-time job of writing a movie, the full-time job of directing a movie, and the full-time job of running a studio. Granted, he does co-run it with Peter Safran, which is a big help. Now, Kevin Feige, well, certainly a very creative person and certainly someone I would call a filmmaker, he is a producer. He's always been a producer. He puts movies together from a different lens than a writer does or than a director does. Kevin Feige, he brings people together. He gives them guidance and he pieces everything together to deliver a final product. And with the MCU, Kevin Feige, yeah, he has had huge creative influence and input on the overarching story, and it all stops with him. He's, the head boss over there. He decides what happens. So while he oversees that overarching story and certain plot points that need to be hit and certain character development that needs to happen, he also brings in writers and directors to actually make the movies. And this macro view skill set that Kevin Feige has is, I think, the perfect skill set for overseeing an entire studio, Disney Studios. And this macro overview skill set and the not getting too deep into the weeds and allowing other creatives to do their thing, that is a skill set that Feige has that would apply very well to running Disney Studios. They're Walt Disney, whatever it's called. Walt Disney Studios, I think, is the overarching brand name that oversees not only Disney films, but Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm and Pixar. Feige would be a great choice for that position because he looks at things in the macro. He puts people together, he gives guidance, and that's what a gifted producer does. And that's what he is, a producer. And I think it would be a great thing for Star Wars. I think it'd be a great thing for Marvel. Hopefully, he can find someone that he trusts and that he can work well with and has worked well with for, the previous however many years, and that he can put in, in to replace him at Marvel Studios and also find a new person for Lucasfilm. All due respect to Kathleen Kennedy, but it's time. She knows it's time. We know it's time. Uh, I don't think Dave Filoni's the guy, personally. I'm not even sure that Jon Favreau's the guy. Maybe. I don't think he and Feige have had the best working relationship. In fact, after Iron Man 2, I don't think Favreau's had really any involvement with the MCU except for playing Happy Hogan. But anyway, yeah, I think that Feige, he's the guy to oversee Disney's entire movie division. Let him macro view Lucasfilm. Let him macro view Marvel Studios. That's what he's great at. Pixar, everything else they do. I think that Feige would be the perfect choice for that role. And that's my hope for him post Secret Wars. I want him involved in the Mutant Saga, but I also like the idea of him shepherding Lucasfilm and Star Wars a bit. But hey, those are just my thoughts on the future of Feige. Thank you so much for the question. Let me know your thoughts and theories down in the comments below. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in to the email address AskColtonNow@gmail.com, link in the description below. And hey, maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show.